tone. And I think we have seen a real shift, particularly with regards to foreign policy in President Trump's rhetoric, in his attitude on Israel, on Iran, and on China, and now on North Korea. And it's very important with North Korea that the president does take a slightly more cautious tone, partially because we know very well that the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, is a highly irascible, erratic, irrational, and volatile figurehead. He is not somebody who you want to bait into provocation. But I also think that this may well have been something of a test for President Trump. We have seen Kim Jong-un and his father, Kim Jong-il, before him do this over and over again. We're essentially doing something very provocative, very dangerous, inviting a kind of frenzied response from the international community, forcing everybody to the negotiating table with the hopes of then extracting some kind of economic concessions out of that in return for not engaging in nuclear warfare. So I do think this was a very important test for President Trump, and I do think it shows some kind of maturity and some shift in foreign policy that we saw this tone, this much more measured tone. Moreover, the key partner who will deal with North Korea with the U.S., or who can help the U.S. to deal with North Korea, is not going to be Japan. It is going to be China, because China is the one who has the interconnected economy and political connections to North Korea. They have the most leverage over, and so perhaps that's why we've seen President Trump take a more conciliatory tone with China as well.
Exactly. And Nick, to Clarissa's point and bigger picture, as Berman and I were talking about this morning, not just the fact that all of a sudden the president at the end of last week did a complete reversal of course on the one China policy, saying, OK, it can remain as it is. He also was very, very mute on North Korea. In those words with the Japanese prime minister, he didn't even say North Korea. He just said, we stand by Japan. And then, as John noted, on Israeli settlements, saying perhaps not the best path to peace or a two-state solution, to continue on those, not making an emphasis on a quick move of the embassy to Jerusalem. All of this shows us a very different side of the president when it comes to diplomacy.
And it's going to be, interesting, to say the very least, for the interlocutors, Benjamin Netanyahu, tomorrow when he arrives in the White House. What will he find behind the closed doors? The candidate and the pre-inaugural president, if you will, who was robust on moving the embassy to Jerusalem? Or will he find one who's going to sort of perhaps curtail him in his ambitions to certainly give ground to his political right that he's feeling heat from back home? I mean, just before getting on the plane to go to the United States, Netanyahu was very clear not to sort of mistake this new White House for a clean sheet, if you will, an opportunity to do things that they couldn't do under President Obama. That was a political message for back home. So what will he find when he goes through the door? And certainly what we're hearing at the moment is one that's going to caution him against further expansion of settlements, one that's going to caution him that that's not in the best interest of peace. When you look, however, at what the president has said and what he wants to achieve in terms of his policy towards China, now sort of backtracking and saying that he supports China's the one China policy. The optics of the weekend, however, in Mar-a-Lago were far different. I mean, this was a very, very big statement of an intent to develop economic relations with Japan, to put Japan perhaps in the forefront in the region. And at the same time, later today, he'll have to turn to and look at the UN Security Council, where he will be, as Clarissa was saying, looking to China for support. China is going to want more than, the United States supports the one China policy to get the kind of leverage that perhaps President Trump wants to see over North Korea. China has said that it sees North Korea testing these ballistic missiles as an issue more between North Korea, South Korea, and the United States than one that necessarily involves China. And I think we have the same inclinations from Russia, who've also condemned that missile launch, but are looking to see how policy, President Trump's policy towards them is going to develop on Ukraine, on Syria, on a number of issues.
Nick Robertson, Clarissa Ward, guys, thank you both very much, live from London for us. Still to come for us, a handful of administration staffers off to a rocky start. Flynn, Spicer, Kellyanne Conway, are we in for a major shakeup?
Sugar, we're